President Trump called on Senate Republicans to end the filibuster over the funding bill battle and reopen government for the American people. Despite the White House's frustration at the political impasse in Congress, Republicans have on the Hill opposed such a measure. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details on the story.
The filibuster has traditionally been viewed as a very important safeguard. If the shoe was on the other foot, I don't think our team would like it.
House Republican leadership has been clear they do not want to see the end of the filibuster in the Senate. But without the support of Senate Democrats, the government will remain closed past November 1st, when millions of Americans will begin to lose critical nutrition assistance benefits.
Could be that what's going on is that they're going to hold on until the president and Republicans decide that they have to use the filibuster, add the filibuster for these things. I hope not.
November 4th is another important milestone in the government shutdown battle, as both the House and Senate Democratic leaders are from the state of New York. And on Tuesday, New York City will elect its new mayor. Not all Democrats agree with their leadership strategy of leveraging government funding to achieve policy objectives.
And like I said, to all of the viewers, I'm apologizing that we can't even get our together and just open up our government.
Democratic Senators Cortez Masto, Angus King, and John Fetterman have consistently voted to reopen government. Senator John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, has even supported the idea of eliminating the filibuster, but just for the government funding votes.
I think it's entirely appropriate, and I would remind all of us, the Democrats, we wanted to nuke the entire filibuster. I'm referring to right now carving out this specific. Right now, I'm not talking about eliminating the entire filibuster.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Senate Republicans have been outspoken in their opposition to ending the filibuster.
We're not going to end the filibuster on a short-term funding bill. Frankly, we're not going to end the filibuster over anything in this Congress. Well, it would mean that you never face a supermajority vote in the Senate again. And if you eliminate it for a 4-week funding bill, the Democrats, they take power, will use it to make Washington, D.C. a state, to get 2 senators in perpetuity. They'll use it to pack the Supreme Court.
If the government shutdown continues, by the end of next week, it will have become the longest government shutdown in American history. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Enhanced premium tax credits, which are designed to make healthcare more affordable through the Affordable Care Act marketplace, are set to expire this year. It's a major issue which is causing the government to shut down to drag out for longer. Democrats want to extend them, but now Republicans want to discuss it once the government is open again. Small businesses are watching it closely as healthcare for their employees is already a major expense. Joining us to discuss is Javier Palomares, founder and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council and former Obama campaign advisor. And we have Michael Busler, an economist and public policy analyst who serves as a professor of finance at Stockton University. So thank you both for coming on this afternoon. Javier, I'll start with you. How are business owners feeling about the prospect of these premium tax credits expiring at the end of this year?
Well, as you can imagine, Don, this is a major issue for every American small business. Larger corporations don't have this issue. It doesn't impact them. I've said 100 times. This doesn't impact Wall Street, but it could devastate Main Street. American small businesses employ, literally millions of Americans, almost 50% of our population. And it's those employees of the small businesses that, depend on the tax credits that make healthcare affordable. And you're talking about 22, 23 million Americans that depend on these enhanced premium tax credits. So this is a very, very difficult time for the small business community. The clock is ticking. We're at the 11th hour. We're now this is the longest shutdown in American history. I don't see, any light at the end of this tunnel. We're talking to both sides of the aisle. Both sides are pretty stuck in their positions right now. And at the end of the day, it's the American small business community, our employees, that are gonna suffer. These healthcare benefits are going to double, triple in some cases, making healthcare unaffordable for literally millions of Americans at a time when we sorely need it.
So, Michael, Javier is right that we're approaching the longest shutdown ever in history of this government. So, why is it that small businesses are made to foot the bill in the first place?
So let's look at the big picture here for a minute. So Obamacare was passed 15 years ago with the promise of reducing healthcare premiums and insuring more people. Before Obamacare, we had 90% of the population of households had health insurance. After Obamacare, there's now 91% of the population that have health insurance. Premiums have skyrocketed. So back in the big beautiful bill, the Congress decided that they've got to do something to reduce the annual deficit because the public debt is now over $38 trillion. And we're spending almost $2 trillion a year more, the government is, than it takes in tax revenue. So we've got to cut government spending. So when the bill passed, they said, look, in 2021, Congress said, we're coming out of COVID, unemployment's fairly high, a lot of people can't afford their benefits. So we'll pass a temporary subsidy to help people pay the benefits. That subsidy was due to run out at the end of 2025. And Congress said, let's not extend it because we have to get government spending down to reduce the annual deficit. Just when they did that, Obamacare healthcare premiums are about to skyrocket on their own. So the problem that we have now the Democrats say we're not going to open up the government until you agree to pay for that. And over a 10-year period, that's $1.5 trillion it will add to the public debt at a time when we're trying to hold the debt constant or even trying to get it down. The Republicans are going to stand hard with this. They're not going to bend. We can't continue to spend money we don't have. I'm very sympathetic to the people that are going to see these large increases in premiums. And we don't want to see that happen to anybody. But on the other hand, you can't ask the taxpayers who already pay 80% of the premiums for these people to pay even more. The problem is healthcare is too expensive. We have to change the healthcare system to get it to a point where the costs are not going up so much every year, the quality improves, and people are able to keep their doctors.
So, Javier, what do you think about those points that were just made by Michael?
No question that we're in a bad situation when it comes to the budget and the deficit. No argument there. Look, I'm not a politician and I'm not an economist like Dr. Busler. I'm a businessman, and I'm talking to the people who pay the taxes, drive the economy, create the American jobs. It's the American small business community. We represent about 70% of net new jobs in this nation. We need help. Our employees are the ones that depend on the Affordable Care Act and these earned premium tax credits, enhanced premium tax credits. At the end of the day, there are arguments pro and against, and all of them seem to make sense. But it is the American small business community, it is our employees who are going to feel the brunt. We don't argue. As a businessman, I couldn't argue that we need to stay within our budget, but there are other ways to get the tax revenue we need. There are other ways to fund this government. We are spending an insane amount on military, on defense. These are expenses. These are dollars that could be used to help the average American family. We're talking about 22 million Americans that will not have health care. And as I said, our members in Congress and most of us will not get impacted by this. That's part of the problem. The people deciding what to do, they're going to go home. They'll still have a job. They'll still have excellent health care. This does not impact them. But we're the ones, it's our constituency of business owners and our employees that will get impacted. And the system is absolutely back-asswards. And we need this Congress, this administration, and politicians on both sides of the aisle to pay attention to the American small business community. We're the ones who make this economy work. We don't have, huge tax departments working for us. We don't have huge marketing departments working for us. We don't have, lobbyists talking to every single member of the Congress. We just don't have those assets. We don't have those resources. Thank God that NTD and other media networks are even listening to us. But this is a crisis, and this will impact ultimately the American economy in ways that we may not be able to recover from very quickly. And so there is a way here for us to get through this thing. We need to fund the government, we need to get back to work, and we need to extend the earned premium tax credits, the enhanced premium tax credits, on behalf of the Americans who need it. Working Americans, by the way.
Okay, so Michael, I'll go off of Javier's point a little bit, and I see where you're coming from, Michael, and a lot of people would agree with you that we need to keep the national debt down. But how do you explain that in light of small businesses suffering? They're thinking about their own situation right now.
Javier's absolutely right. Small business is the backbone of this country. The vast majority of new jobs are created by small business, and we need to do everything we can to make it easier for small businesses to succeed. Most new businesses end up failing within the first 3 years. So the ones that make it have done things right, and they've created a business, they've created jobs. We have to keep that going. On the other hand, we can't continue to spend money that we don't have. We just can't continue to spend money we don't have, period. Every politician says, well, let's reduce government spending to get the deficit down. But as soon as you say this is where we're going to cut it, a politician has a problem. Well, that affects my constituents. You can't cut it there. Find some other place to cut it. And then when you find another place to cut it, let's cut defense. Well, someone says, look, there's wars going on. We're trying to get over these wars. Our military was decimated during the last administration. We need to build that up. So don't cut defense spending. Well, how about some of the other things? Medicare and Social Security account for over half the spending. Well, we can't cut that because all these people paid into it all these years. So there's very little room to cut spending, but we have to cut spending. This administration got the deficit down from a little over 2 trillion down to 1.8 trillion. They'll probably get it down to about 1.4 trillion in the next fiscal year, and they'll do that if they're able to hold the line on spending. The dilemma we're in now is that we can't spend any more money we don't have, and yet if we don't subsidize health insurance for the 20 million people, they're going to run into a lot of trouble. And Javier's right. Big business can afford, well, health insurance goes up a little bit, we'll absorb it here and there. Small business can't do that. You end up raising the health insurance premiums, and either they have to say to their employees, look, we're not going to be profitable if we pay this, so either you're going to have to pay it. We could try to raise our prices, but it's a competitive market, and we're trying to fight inflation and keep prices down. This is a very difficult problem. The answer to the problem is let's get the government opened. We only need 5 Democratic senators to vote for that. Let's get it open. And then let's sit down and say, hey, we've got to mess with healthcare. Regardless of who likes it and who doesn't like it right now, it's not working and it's too expensive. So let's figure out a way. There's some very intelligent people in Congress. They should be able to figure out a way to keep the healthcare system improving, keep the quality of the healthcare, in my view, the best in the world, but we have to keep the costs down. I think a lot of it during Obamacare, they had very good intentions, get the government involved to kind of watch this, that, and the other thing. The problem is there's too much government involved now, and the only ones making out here are the insurance companies. Health insurance companies' profits are skyrocketing, and they keep coming in and say, we need rate increases. What we need to do is get the costs down. Let's get the government open. Let's get both sides of the aisle to sit down. We all have the same goal. We want the best quality healthcare and try to cover as many people as possible and keep it at a reasonable cost.
So Javier, your response, but I also want to ask you, do small businesses have any backup plans or alternatives to footing the bill?
But before I get into that, Don, again, I'm not nearly as learned as Dr. Busler, but to give it a little bit more context, you're talking about maybe 5% of the GDP. So this is not a huge hit. It is a hit, and it is an expense, but it's not an outlandish expense. This is a very small portion of our GDP. And if we don't extend the tax credits and these go away, there are consequences. For example, $57 billion of economic output goes out the window. You're looking at $34 billion, of our GDP taking a negative hit on an annual basis. You're talking about $21 billion in state taxes that will go away. And on top of that, it's estimated some 300,000 American jobs will go away. So there's the other side of this coin that yes, this is a hit to our GDP. This is a hit, in terms of our budget and our expenses, but it is not a significant expense when you look at everything else we've got going on. And there are some real benefits from an economic standpoint of keeping people healthy and keeping them on the job. So to give the full story, that's the other half of this. Now, in terms of contingency plans, we have none. It comes down to this. We let people go because we can't afford the health care for all of them. So some have got to go so that we can afford the higher price for the rest that are left. We shutter the business altogether, or our people go without insurance at all. And none of those is an option that we're comfortable with. We shouldn't be. It is a dire situation. And again, the bad, really sad part of all of this is that the people making the decisions at the end of the day are not impacted because their health care is going to be just fine. They're going to have the world's greatest health care. Their families will be taken care of. They'll have a job tomorrow. It's the small business community and the millions upon millions of Americans that we employ that are going to take this hit.
Okay, so Michael, we're just about out of time. If you have any final thoughts you'd like to say right now.
Yeah, one last thing. I agree with everything Javier said. Everything he said makes sense. The problem is we can't keep spending money we don't have. And every time we go to cut something, with all due respect to Javier, everybody says the same thing. Well, it's only a couple percent here and it's a couple percent there. But we can't keep increasing. We've got to start cutting back. Healthcare is not an area where you typically say, I want to cut back for exactly the reasons that Javier said. We've got to figure out a way to make the healthcare system work with the dollars that we have now. In the short term, let's get the government open. Let's figure out how to help everybody without spending too much money. And in the long term, let's solve this problem rather than just kicking the can down the road, which is what we've done really every year since we've had the Affordable Care Act. It turned out to be not so affordable, and they just keep kicking the can down the road. We're at the end of the road. It's time to address this problem. So get the government open. Let's address this problem. And let's try to come up with a solution that makes sense for everybody.
Well, all right. Good discussion today. Thank you both, Javier and Michael.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks for having me.
As federal SNAP benefits are set to run out tomorrow, volunteers at a Manhattan food pantry are filling in the gaps. Large boxes of eggs, carrots, peanut butter, and canned goods are some of the staples being distributed. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on their efforts.
Shakira Cruz is pantry manager at the Holy Apostles Soup Kitchen in New York City. She said people were lining up.
We have a lot of seniors here. There's tons of seniors. There's a lot of disabled people. So they rely on us because the SNAP is just not enough.
New Yorker Diana Vilsaint doesn't receive SNAP benefits, but she still relies on the food pantry.
The pantries help me out too as well. So I really appreciate the pantries, because without the pantry, that's when we would really have problems.
Alan Joseph does rely on SNAP benefits, so the food pantry is critical as funding for the program runs out.
This is a big break, the SNAP, because when you go to grocery shopping now, it's high. If you got the SNAP, doesn't matter how much they give you, but that would be covered juice, milk, eggs. Everything costs a lot of money now.
Alejandro Morales volunteers at the Holy Apostles. He also receives SNAP benefits, so he's preparing by budgeting the money he receives from the program.
I'm not concerned about it because I know ahead of time. Once I know ahead of time, I know how to proceed. I have been through this before.
Funding for SNAP runs out tomorrow, November 1st. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
2 judges have ordered today for the federal government to use contingency funds for SNAP food aid payments during the shutdown. Voters in several states will head to the polls next Tuesday to cast their ballots. Democrats and Republicans will compete in races for governor, state attorney general, and state Supreme Court justices. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the races to watch.
Tuesday will see candidates in several states vying for votes. In the Virginia governor's race, Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears will face off against Democrat Abigail Spanberger. Spanberger has consistently led in polls, with an 8% advantage in the most recent polling. Voters in New Jersey will pick their next governor as well. Democrat Mikey Sherrill is competing against Republican and former state assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli. Though Sherrill is ahead, the most recent polling shows her lead at just 1%. In Virginia's race for Attorney General, Democrat nominee Jay Jones will take on Republican incumbent Jason Miyares. Republicans have pushed for Jones to drop out of the race after text messages surfaced in which he talked about shooting former House Speaker Todd Gilbert. During a debate on October 16th, Jones publicly apologized to Gilbert, saying he was ashamed. Spanberger, the gubernatorial candidate, has refused to call for Jones to drop out. In Pennsylvania, 3 Democratic members of the state's highest court are up for re-election. Christine Donahue, Kevin Dougherty, and David Wetsch have no opponents, but voters will decide if they should remain on the bench. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Election Day 2025 is coming up in just 1 week. NTD's Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer will bring you live special coverage of all the big races, from New York's mayoral election to the governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. Tune in on Tuesday, November 4th at 7 p.m. to get the latest election results with live analysis from our data reporters and our on-the-ground teams. That's Tuesday, November 4th, starting 7 p.m. only here on NTD. Don't miss it. President Trump has renovated the Lincoln bathroom at the White House. Trump announced on Truth Social that the bathroom was previously renovated in the 1940s with an Art Deco green tile style, which he called totally inappropriate for the Lincoln era. An image of the refit shows it replaced with a black and white polished statuary marble instead. Joining us now to discuss the renovations at the White House, in particular the White House Ballroom project, is Emel Khan, senior White House correspondent for the Epoch Times. Emel, thank you for joining us today. So you wrote in a recent article that President Trump, during the Obama administration, had offered to build a ballroom at the White House at his own expense. Can you tell us more about that?
Thank you, Don, for having me. It's great to see you. Yes, it's quite an amazing story, right? Before becoming president, I think it was during 2016 presidential campaign, he mentioned that he offered to build a ballroom at the White House, and he asked the Obama administration, but they declined the offer. And now he's the new resident of the White House, and he can do that ballroom. And he's actually now doing that with his own, style, with his own most favored classical style. So that's quite an interesting example. And he said a few times during the campaign that he offered the project a few times, and he even offered to pay for it, but he couldn't get green light for the ballroom project. And now it's coming. Now he's basically achieving that dream with this new ballroom project.
The ballroom at the White House in the first place?
Well, they need this ballroom because of the space, limitations that they have at the ballroom, because there is a need for this kind of gatherings, large gatherings at the White House to accommodate large number of guests. At the moment, the White House has the East Room, for example, it only accommodates 200 people. And the State Dining Room has only 140 guests at maximum. So this ballroom, the new one, will be able to accommodate large diplomatic gatherings and it will be a 90,000 square feet project, and it will include roughly 1,000 guests. So it's going to be a huge ballroom.
So we know the president's experience in real estate, right? Around 50 years. I'm just wondering if that's going to benefit this project, his experience in real estate and development.
That's absolutely going to be a crucial experience for this project, because the president himself said that for 150 years, the presidents of the United States wanted to build a ballroom, but they didn't have the experience that he had. So I think that his experience will help a lot. He's hiring, the engineers. He's hiring architecture firms to do this ballroom project, but his experience will be very crucial. We don't know the details, how he is involved in these projects, but I'm pretty sure that he's giving a lot of advice about the ballroom design and the construction of the ballroom as well.
So Iman, I also wanted to ask you about the Lincoln bathroom. We showed images of this earlier, that Trump has opted for a traditional marble instead of the Art Deco style that existed before. Can you tell us more about the traditional classical design that Trump favors and is choosing for the ballroom as well?
Yeah, I think this is a very crucial topic, Don. We have been covering the truth tradition at the Epoch Times. We have been putting a lot of emphasis on this, and just want to remind people, during the first term, Trump issued an executive order before leaving office, making traditional design, making classical design a preferred style for architecture in Washington. And when President Joe Biden came, he eliminated that rule. And then after President Trump took office in January again, he reinstated that executive order. So what he wants is, when there is a renovation, when there is a construction of a federal building, the preferred style will be classical design. And this is a very interesting proposal, and a lot of people have been advocating for return to classical style. And there are a lot of people, there are a lot of voices who have been advocating for that. So it's a big win for them. And ballroom will be also a part of this effort, so that the ballroom itself will embrace the classical traditional style.
So Emel, what about the critics who say the White House being altered is erasing part of its history?
There have been a lot of renovations at the White House, so this is not going to be the first time. There were a lot of changes to the White House, the building of East Wing, West Wing, the balcony. There's a lot of changes to all interior as well. Even going back to Truman period, you had 4 years where the president had to leave outside because of the ongoing interior reconstruction of the White House. So this is not a new project. I understand there are a lot of concerns about the size of this ballroom. It's such a big, huge project, which could overwhelm the White House itself. But also, I would like to remind people that, and I speak to a lot of people about this, and what they're trying to say is that the ballroom is desperately needed. The size of guests are growing, and when you have state visits, when the president hosts state dinners, the president has actually limitations on how many people he can invite to the White House. So many of these events are hosted on South Lawn, which is very, very difficult because they have to build tent, and it's not really looking pleasant, as President Trump put it. So this is a long overdue project. And also, I would like to remind people that as a resident of Washington, D.C., when a president has to go outside of the White House to attend an event, a large size ballroom events, the whole traffic gets crazy. The Secret Service has to do a lot of work. So I think this will also ease a lot of pressure that the White House have. So I think it's important for the White House to have this ballroom. So we will see I think there are a lot of concerns about it, about how it's funded as well. But I do think that if the White House becomes more transparent, continues to become more transparent about the ballroom project, I think it will help a lot of people to understand it and support the project.
So you talked about funding, right? So I want to point out that the funding for the ballroom construction will all come from donors and Trump himself. So can you talk to us about how significant is that these renovations do not cost taxpayers anything?
It's a huge news for people because taxpayers know that it's not going to be funded with the government funds, with the government money. It's a private donation. And I think the best thing that the White House did is that they have provided the full list of people, the companies and people, individuals, wealthy individuals who contributed to this project. They have raised roughly more than $300 million for this project. And President is estimating that the cost will be around $300 or $350 million. And so that is important to see, it's important to understand. And many people are concerned that, for example, Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, Democrat, he raised concerns about the conflict of interest here when people are donating this much money or contributing to this project. Will they have access to the White House? So there were a lot of questions, and he sent out letters to those donors asking what they are getting in exchange for the donation. I think it's also important to understand, some people are criticizing this, but it's important to understand that this is how Washington works. There are a lot of lobby groups advocating for policy changes, and there are a lot of companies doing lobbying here. So it's part of the tradition, and there are a lot of people donating as well for political advocacy. So this is part of the tradition, and it's not illegal. So I think the president has the right to do this, and I think he won't be challenged because of that.
Well, Emel, I'd say that about covers it for this topic. Again, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about this.
Thank you, Don.
Gold dipped below $4,000 an ounce today amid uncertainty over another interest rate cut in December. The prospect of an end-of-year rate reduction helped keep the U.S. dollar near a 3-month high. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
Spot gold was down nearly half a percentage point at $3,988 today after a nearly 4% gain this month. The U.S. dollar hovered near a 3-month high. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 25 basis points to a target range of 3.75 to 4%, the second time this year. However, Fed Chair Jerome Powell cautioned markets against assuming another rate cut in December. In addition to news from the central bank, trade remains in focus. Yesterday, President Donald Trump said he had agreed to cut tariffs on China. In exchange, Beijing vowed to crack down on the illicit fentanyl trade. In other markets, spot silver was down 0.8% to $48 an ounce. Platinum was down nearly 2% to $1,565 an ounce. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The state of Arkansas is looking to become a hub for lithium in the U.S., but there are challenges amid competition from China. Lithium can make electric vehicle batteries and other devices if the metal can be filtered using direct lithium extraction, or DLE. But it's something that has never before been done at commercial scale. ExxonMobil, Standard Lithium, and Chevron are among the companies rushing to prove DLE can work in Arkansas. The state must also contend with a lithium price drop fueled by oversupply from Chinese rivals. State officials and industry executives this week attended the Arkansas Lithium Innovation Summit in Little Rock. They said the challenges are surmountable. Arkansas is betting on its industrial expertise, low electricity rates, and a permissive regulatory scheme to help it become a lithium hub. The U.S. currently has only one lithium mine in Nevada. Ukraine says it managed to destroy one of Russia's advanced new hypersonic missiles. The Kremlin previously touted them as being invulnerable to air defense systems. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the war update.
Russia launched an overnight attack on the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy, injuring 11 residents, including 4 children. Footage shows the night sky lit by an orange glow, followed by sounds of explosions. People were also seen evacuating as firefighters hose burning buildings and other structures. Ukrainian officials say attack drones damaged multiple residential buildings and homes. Ukraine's train operator also says the drones struck a passenger train depot in Sumy, damaging its premises and rolling stock. And Ukraine reports managing to destroy one of Russia's advanced new hypersonic missiles. The Kremlin previously touted them as being invulnerable to air defense systems. According to Ukraine, the incident took place 2 years ago.
One of 3 Oreshnik missiles was successfully destroyed on their territory. It was a very successful mission, and at that moment, we did not say a word about it. But time has passed already.
NTD can't independently verify the claims, and Russian officials didn't yet comment on the assertion. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Britain has revised down estimates of its wind power output by nearly 30% as a consequence. An analyst says this could mean higher subsidy payouts for wind farms and higher energy bills for UK consumers, with subsidy costs potentially locked in for decades. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
The British government has cut forecasts for how much energy wind farms are expected to produce. The new estimates reduce the load factor, that is, the amount of the year turbines are expected to generate power, from 61% down to 44% for offshore wind turbines, and from 49% down to 33% for onshore. Andrew Montford, director of Net Zero Watch, said that about 10 years ago, the then Conservative government increased the estimates of how much power a wind farm would produce by roughly a half.
They went up from roughly 40% of capacity to 60% of capacity, and we said that this was complete nonsense, and we've been campaigning to get the numbers made more realistic ever since.
Montford says the now reduced figures are more realistic, but it also means the government will have to pay more money in subsidies to secure the same amount of energy in the upcoming wind subsidy auction. British Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband has sought to phase out fossil fuels and increase reliance on renewables as part of his Clean Power 2030 plan. Developers have been offered an initial budget of $1.4 billion annually in support of new offshore wind farms. Since the subsidies are contracted to run for 20 years, Montford said Britain could get stuck with high prices for energy.
I mean, much higher than they are today, perhaps 30% higher than they are today, which would be a catastrophe for the economy.
A wind turbine's efficiency can be affected by numerous factors, such as high or low wind speeds, and how often the wind farms are paid to switch off to prevent overcongestion on the electricity network. These are called system costs. Montford said it's not possible to get energy prices down without drastic action.
So to get bills down, we need to eliminate those system costs, and the only way to do that is actually to close the wind farms down. So not only have you got to cancel the CFD subsidies, but you've actually got to say to the wind farm, sorry, you're going to have to close.
He says this is a huge step that would face lots of challenges, from investor confidence to international agreements as well as national laws.
All those things need to be overcome, but that is the only way to get bills down.
A Net Zero Department spokesperson said wind power is a secure and reliable power source, saying the next renewables auction round will prioritize value for money for households. This week, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates called on the United Nations to make a major strategic pivot away from what he termed a doomsday view of climate goals. While saying climate change will still have serious consequences, Gates said it will not lead to humanity's demise, and suggested money could be better allocated to things that make society more resilient, such as crop resilience and healthcare. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, UK.
6 people have been arrested after armed men used explosives during a robbery from a precious metals refinery yesterday in Lyon, France. French media reported that the loot included gold bars and was valued at nearly $14 million. The items were able to be recovered. Video showed men in black carrying guns and putting bags into a white van. 5 refinery employees suffered minor injuries. The robbery follows a heist at the iconic Louvre Museum in Paris on October 19th, where 7 suspects have been taken into custody for that. The state of Arkansas. The State Department has added Nigeria to a watch list. President Trump said Christians in the West African nation are under threat. Trump took to Truth Social today, posting, quote, "Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands of Christians are being killed." The president added, quote, "Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter." In response, the State Department added Nigeria to a countries of particular concern list for engaging in what the U.S. believes are violations of religious freedom. The list includes China, Myanmar, North Korea, Russia, and Pakistan, among others. Trump said he was asking Representatives Riley Moore, Tom Cole, and the House Appropriations Committee to look into the matter and report back to him. Esther Wojcicki, an educator, journalist, and author often called the godmother of Silicon Valley, shares her extraordinary journey in reshaping how students learn and think. Her approach not only produced award-winning publications, but also inspired a culture of creativity that still thrives today. Take a look.
You built the most successful journalism program in the United States. You became the top teacher in California. You wrote a best-selling book, and you're regarded often as the best parent and educator in the country. So please tell us a little bit about the elements that you implemented through your teaching.
So I implemented this program at Palo Alto High School, and it started in 1984. And in the beginning, it was a traditional journalism program where students came to class and sat on their desks and listened to me, the teacher, and read a book and then took tests. And
just like
any other class. And then I realized about 6 months into the program, after I'd just been hired, that not only were the kids not learning anything, but they were bored, and so was I. I was really bored. It just wasn't exciting. And so I got rid of the book and put it back in the book room. Then I decided the most effective way for them to learn to be journalists was to read a real newspaper. So I got some real newspapers and handed them out in class. So if they read on page 1, they were reading news. The question is, how do you write news? So these were good models for how to write news. So then I went over each story and explained how it was written, and then they would copy that style and write their own story. They thought that was great. They loved it. The other reason I think the kids came to the program and liked it was because I always let them revise. So if they did a bad job in writing their article, I was like, so what? No problem. Just do it again. And so they revised, and kids love to revise because then they could get an A. So everybody in the class could get an A if they revised. That was it. So it became a very popular program. So word got out in the school, I didn't advertise, that this was a fun program. So next year, the first number, I had about 19 kids in the first year. The next year, it doubled, and I didn't do anything. They just told their friends. To make a long story shorter, from 2000 until 2012, every 2 years, I started another publication. So today, in Palo Alto, at the Media Arts Center, there are 14 magazines, 1 newspaper, a television program that is every day, podcasting, and video production that kids make movies.
Still going on right now.
It's not only still going on, there's now hundreds of kids in the program and 4 other teachers.
That's amazing. And I also heard that you were not necessarily telling them what to do or giving them answers, but once in a while, at the right time, you would drop a hint.
I would drop a lot of hints. I would let them continue to do something which I personally didn't think I would ever do. But sometimes those things actually worked out. You know, I remember one of the magazines they wanted to create was a magazine that I thought would just fail. It was like crazy idea. It was, a creative magazine where they were teaching kids, how to cook, how to braid your hair, how to do all these things that I thought, I don't know, we're spending all this money producing this magazine and probably no one is going to look at it. I was wrong. The whole school wanted to look at it. So, you know, you have to trust them because it's their generation, right? It's not my generation. What's interesting to them, give them that opportunity, because kids would say, I don't know how to do this. You know, I've never done it before. And my philosophy was, just do it, because then you can revise, you know, do it quickly and then revise until it gets to be perfect. And it sort of translated into this philosophy in Silicon Valley, which was basically do it and then, you know, it's fail fast. I never said fail to my students. I said, you know, revise, you know, make it better. And it worked.